Forces are all around us and they play a big role in how things move. A force is simply a push or a pull on an object. Anytime you push something, like a door, or pull something, like a wagon, you're using a force. Forces can make things move, stop, or change direction. In fact, the way things move depends on the forces acting on them. Sometimes these forces are equal, and other times, they are not. Understanding how forces work helps us understand the patterns in how things move and how energy is transferred from one object to another. When forces are equal, an object stays still or moves at a constant speed. Think about when you're playing tug of war. If both teams are pulling with the same amount of force, the rope doesn't move. This is because the forces on either side are balanced or equal. Since neither team is pulling harder than the other, the rope stays in the middle. This is an example of stability. Nothing changes because the forces are balanced. In science, we say that the object is in a state of equilibrium because the forces cancel each other out, and there's no change in motion. Now let's look at what happens when the forces are unequal. Imagine the same game of tug of war, but this time, one team pulls harder than the other. The rope starts to move toward the stronger team. This happens because the forces are no longer balanced. One force is greater than the other. Unequal forces cause things to move or change direction. This is an example of cause and effect. The stronger force causes the rope to move, and the effect is that the rope gets pulled in the direction of the stronger team. The way an object moves depends on the direction and strength of the forces acting on it. If a force is applied in the same direction the object is already moving, the object will move faster. If a force is applied in the opposite direction, the object will slow down or stop. For example, when you kick a soccer ball, you apply a force that makes the ball move. If you kick the ball harder, the ball will move faster and travel farther. If someone else tries to stop the ball by blocking it, they're applying a force in the opposite direction, which slows the ball down. This is an example of how unequal forces create different patterns of motion. Forces also transfer energy from one object to another. When you throw a ball, the energy from your arm is transferred to the ball, making it move. The harder you throw the ball, the more energy you transfer to it, and the farther it goes. When the ball hits the ground, some of its energy is transferred to the ground, and that's why the ball eventually stops moving. This transfer of energy is happening all the time in our everyday lives. For example, when you push a swing, you're transferring energy from your body to the swing, causing it to move back and forth. Another good example of how forces work is gravity. Gravity is the force that pulls objects toward the earth. It's what makes things fall when you drop them, and it's the reason we stay on the ground instead of floating into space. Gravity is always acting on us, even though we can't see it. It's a constant force, and it's what gives us weight. When you jump into the air, gravity pulls you back down to the ground. If you throw a ball into the air, gravity pulls it back down too. This shows us a pattern. No matter how high you jump or how hard you throw the ball, gravity will always pull things down. Now let's talk about friction. Friction is a force that happens when two objects rub against each other, and it slows things down. For example, when you slide a book across a table, it eventually stops because of friction between the book and the table. The rougher the surface, the more friction there is, and the faster things slow down. If you were to slide the same book on a smooth surface like ice, it would move farther because there's less friction. Friction is another example of how forces can change the way things move by affecting the transfer of energy. In conclusion, forces, whether equal or unequal, are always at work, shaping the way objects move and interact with each other. When forces are balanced, objects stay still or move at a constant speed, showing stability. When forces are unbalanced, they cause motion, creating patterns of movement and transferring energy from one object to another. Understanding how forces work helps us make sense of the world around us, from the simple act of pushing a swing to the complex forces of gravity and friction that control how everything moves. Forces are part of the natural world, and they help explain how things move, stop, and transfer energy.